StudyBassers! In this video, I want to tell you about the biggest learning mistake I see students make. And the mistake is not using two of the most effective learning strategies around. Those are active recall and spaced repetition. Now, before we get into active recall and spaced repetition, I want to teach you something else too. I want you to memorize how to spell the notes of a G minor seventh chord. Now, you might not know what a minor seventh chord is, or even what a chord is. That's okay. I just want you to memorize 4 note names. So a G minor seventh chord contains 4 notes: G, B flat, D, and F. G, B flat, D, F. So say it back to yourself out loud. Okay, you have it. G, B flat, D, and F. Okay, let's get back to our learning strategies. For as long as I can remember, I've been interested in learning about music. And that obsession led me to another one, learning how learning works and effective teaching methods. So I always wanted to get the most out of my practice time and my teachers, and when I began teaching, how to help my students learn more effectively. I wasn't a terrible student in high school, but I wasn't a great student either. I didn't know it in high school, but no one taught me how to learn properly. So even though there's a ton of research on learning, the high school teachers either didn't know about it or didn't apply it. And when I went to college, I went in still not knowing how to learn. The major turning point for me was a cognitive psychology class. And from that class on, I made straight A's. That class taught me about memory and learning, and it started my lifelong interest in how we learn. So I constantly keep up with new research, and whether students realize it or not, I apply it in my private lessons, and I apply it throughout the lessons on StudyBass.com. 2 of the most effective learning strategies that have been researched and confirmed are the strategies of active recall and spaced repetition. We're going to talk about both of those right after a little review of the G minor seventh chord. Remember, at the beginning of the video, I asked you to memorize the 4 notes of a G minor 7 chord. So which of these spellings is the correct answer? If you chose G, B flat, D, F, you got it. And if not, don't worry. Now, let's get back to our main topic. Almost all of my students think they have a bad memory. You don't have a bad memory. You have an incredible memory. Your brain chooses not to remember everything because you would go crazy if it did. In fact, a famous neurosurgeon, Wilder Penfield, found that he could stimulate long-forgotten memories in his patients during brain surgery when his patients were awake. And there are a handful of people in the world with something called hyperthymesia, where they can see a date and remember vivid details from that specific day. So there's no telling what you have memorized and what your memory is capable of. By not remembering every detail, your brain is actually protecting you from going insane. So stop and think about that. Your brain selects what to remember and what to forget. When you understand that basic principle, it should make you realize, I do have a good memory. I just don't know how to use it. So you need to learn what actions and techniques make your brain decide to recall memories and which ones make it forget them. So for better learning, you need to master your memory. Okay, let's take another break and review the G minor 7th chord again. So the G minor 7 chord contains 4 different notes. Is B flat one of them? Yes. Is C one of them? No. Is F one of them? Yes. Is E flat one of them? No. So G minor 7 contains the 4 notes G, B flat, D, and F. Okay, back to our topic of active recall and spaced repetition. What is active recall? If you've ever used flashcards, you've practiced active recall. So active recall means after studying something, you recall the information from your mind instead of restudying it. So you test yourself. You don't look at the material again. You don't reread it. You don't stare at it. You don't print out a poster and tack it to your wall. You internally retrieve the information from your brain. The retrieving, the mental doing, is the active part. When you try to retrieve information from your mind, maybe you'll remember it incorrectly. Maybe you'll have it right. Maybe it'll take you a long time to come up with the answer. It's the act of testing yourself, of retrieving the information, which helps fix the memory strongly in your mind. So once you have an answer, and then, only then, check yourself. So don't give up and simply say, I don't know. Make up an answer, even if it's obviously wrong. So what is a major scale? Chicken. No, but good try. There's a lot of research on this effect going back over a century. It's known as active recall, or the testing effect, or the retrieval practice effect. And for whatever reason, the simple act of testing produces stronger memories than restudying does. What is restudying? Restudying is rereading the material, taking the lesson again, staring at the information. You skip over using any mental effort to remember. So restudying is terrible, especially for anything that you want to learn long term, like music. So restudying is passive. Your brain does very little work, very little effort. So have you ever read a page of text and then asked yourself, what did I just read? When your brain is involved in something passive, it can easily turn off or get distracted. But during an active test, your brain can't turn off so easily. Restudying gives you very little in return, yet it's most people's first instinct when they try to learn something. And it's not your fault, no one told you. It seems like a good idea. There's the information. If I look at it hard enough, I'll get it into my brain. The difference in memory retention between using active recall and restudying is really amazing. Using active recall, testing yourself, can often result in double the retention of information. Double. So isn't that crazy? Even a little bit more would be worthwhile, but twice as much is insane. Okay, time for another quick break. Once again, can you remember how to spell the notes of G minor 7? Take your time. Really search your memory. A cool trick when trying to remember something is to close your eyes. Shutting off visual stimulation gives your brain less to deal with. Okay, did you come up with the 4 notes? G minor 7 is G, B flat, D, F. G, B flat, D, F. What does testing myself mean? You might think testing yourself means taking some sort of final exam after many days or weeks of studying. That's probably what you did in school. No, testing yourself is about constantly asking yourself questions. What did I just read? What was the main point? What was the pattern? Then the next day, without restudying, you ask yourself those same questions. You keep testing yourself. So testing yourself means you write it out in your own handwriting from memory, or you create flashcards with questions on them. You take practice tests. You apply your new knowledge. You explain it to other people. You quiz yourself throughout the day. The simple act of testing yourself is what creates stronger associations, stronger connections in your brain. Why does testing work? There are lots of arguments about why the testing effect works, but no one knows for sure. Testing helps you find and fix your mistakes. Testing gives you confidence in your correct responses. Interestingly, even getting the answers wrong when you test eventually leads to stronger memories for the correct responses. Personally, I think the testing effect works because your mind learns, this is important. I often need a quick answer to this question. Passive restudying tells your mind, well, this information is always here. I can always come and look it up. So passive restudying kind of makes your memory lazy. And that's okay for some things, but in music, there's no time to go look anything up. You need to be ready with no hesitation. Your musical skills and knowledge need to be a reflex. Now, speaking of testing, let's take a break for a second. Once again, how do you spell the notes of a G minor 7 chord? Remember, you're testing yourself. You're not restudying. So search your memory. Take a moment. Try your hardest to actively recall the spelling. And if you're unsure, make one up. Okay, do you have it? G minor 7 is spelled G, B flat, D, F. Now, even if you got it wrong, remember, that's okay. As I explained, even if your recall is wrong, using active recall eventually leads to a stronger memory. Now, our little tests of the G minor 7th chord are examples of how to use active recall. So I'm constantly testing you in different ways to come up with the notes of G minor 7. But with our little tests, I've also been exposing you to another powerful learning strategy, spaced repetition. What is spaced repetition? Spaced repetition is also known as distributed practice, and it means spreading out your repeated tests over time. So instead of repeating the same thing for a long, solid block of time, you space it out, you break it up, you test yourself intermittently. When you space things out, you learn and retain them better. So practicing daily is much more effective than practicing once a week for the same amount of time. The spaced repetition effect works if you space things out over the course of an hour, throughout a day, a week, whatever time frame. And you'll notice I've been spacing out our little G minor 7 chord tests every so often. And it's not by accident. I'm giving you a simple template for applying active recall and spaced repetition. So spreading out self-tests over time leads to these incredible learning results. And even though it's easy to do, it's not everyone's first learning instinct. Now back to that G minor 7 chord for a second. This time I want you to write down the notes of the chord from memory. So you can write it on a piece of scrap paper or type it into any text box on your device, anywhere, it doesn't matter. Don't just think it, write it out, do it. So the act of writing something out strengthens the formation of the memory. Did you write out G, B flat, D, F? If so, great. If not, write it out. G, B flat, D, F. So we've discussed spaced repetition, spreading out tests, reviews, and questioning your memory over time. Some research has found that the intervals of time between your tests make a difference too. So expanding intervals are sometimes more effective than equally spaced time intervals. So that means you might first review something daily, then every 3 days, then after 6 days, then after 12, etc. So you keep spreading out your repetitions with more and more time in between. So the research is less solid on this, but you might try spacing out your repetitions this way. What are some common examples of students restudying instead of using active recall? Checking the music. So you sit down to practice a song that you've been trying to memorize and you immediately look at the written music to remind yourself how to play it. Don't do that. Try to play it from your memory first. Even if it's wrong, knowing where you are wrong is helpful and it leads to greater retention. So once you have an answer, if you're still unsure, go back and look it up. Stickers for the note names on your fretboard. If I were Tony Soprano, I would put out a hit on the person making these fretboard stickers. Okay, not really. But this is constant restudying. There's no challenge for your brain or memory. So we know you can read already. You're just slowing down the whole memory process. You need to be aware of people trying to profit from things beginners think are good ideas. And music education is full of these worthless but profitable schemes. People can't sell you simple, invisible ideas like use active recall and spaced repetition. But they can sell you stupid stickers. So if you have these on your fretboard, please take them off immediately. Another one, just like the fretboard stickers, are these wall posters of scale patterns, arpeggios, and other music theory concepts. No. So don't look at anything, don't reference anything, after your initial lesson on a subject, consult your memory first. Conjure up the right answer or even the wrong answer from your mind. Then, and only then, check your answer if you're unsure. So you'll be amazed at how effective this is. If posters were the answer, I promise I would make 1,000 free posters for you on StudyBass.com. I didn't. So staring at external references is not how you build the strong memory that music requires. You're not going to take that poster to a gig, right? So I will give you one poster that you can print out and hang on your wall. Can you guess what it says? Use active recall and spaced repetition. Did any of your teachers in school ever give you an open book exam? You would flip through the book and mindlessly copy the answers? Why did they do these? Well, they're not totally useless, but we've known about the testing effect for more than a century, so it should have been close your books, test yourself, then open the book and correct your answers. So if you can't resist looking at the answer, make a habit of keeping your books closed. Always test yourself first, then look at your materials. So here's another big one. When trying to learn how to read music, students often make the mistake of writing note names beneath the notes or looking at tab. Don't translate music notation into something else you already know. You're trying to do that translation in your head instantly. If you see two languages side by side and you already know one of them, you're naturally going to read the one that you already know and ignore the other one. So you're not testing yourself on the new language by reading a translation. So find music without tab. Don't write the notes beneath it. Learn to identify them. Test yourself with the bass clef quiz on StudyBass.com. So what are ways that you can apply active recall and spaced repetition in your learning and playing? Well, first, lessons. So after a lesson of any kind, test yourself. Whether it's an in-person lesson, an online lesson, a video, a page in a book, ask yourself, what was I taught? What were the main points? How did that pattern of notes sound? What was the name of that scale? I tell my students to review their lesson immediately when they get home, even if it's only for 5 minutes. So if you wait until the next day, you'll forget a lot of information and details. Private lessons are a test in themselves. So each week I'm asking my students, show me your results for this week. Make spaced tests a habit. Get in the habit of actively recalling material throughout the day. You're spreading it out. You don't need your instrument for everything. So just imagine it in your mind. And get it wrong, it's okay. Any testing helps. When I was voraciously memorizing music theory concepts, I came up with my own cue method of practice. So I linked some action to remind me to test myself. So every time I looked at a clock or drank from a water fountain, those were my reminders to test myself. So I would see a clock and I'd think, time to test myself. What does a major triad sound like? Or what key has 4 sharps? Or what are the notes on the 9th fret? Whatever you're working on, test all day long. So think of where you can put random cues. If you're reading a book, at every 50-page mark, test yourself. Every time you hear an airplane fly over, test yourself. Every time you see skip ad on a video, test yourself. You can link cues all over the place. Structure your practice sessions where you repeat new material several times throughout your entire practice. So interrupt new material with reviews of older material, maybe even at expanding intervals of time. If you're a StudyBass supporter, you can use the StudyBass My Practice app to create repeatable practice sessions. And you can make these short and sweet and run through them several times a day or spread them out over the course of a week. And you can also set how often to review them. So make flashcards. As you study new material, write questions on flashcards with the answer on the back. And then later, pull out your flashcards and test yourself. So you can put them in a filing system and just keep testing yourself over and over. Reading music is testing yourself. It's a quiz on music. What does that symbol mean? What are those notes? What are those chords? Where are they on my instrument? How does that rhythm go? You learn way more than you realize from reading music. The metronome is another test. Can I remember what to play at a consistent rate of speed? Can my fingers remember the motions? Playing with others is a form of testing. There's no restarting, there's no looking things up. You'll make some mistakes, and then you'll correct them with more tests over time. Band practices or rehearsals are a form of spaced repetition. If your band is learning a lot of songs, use the spaced repetition strategy. Learn to play a song together, then keep coming back to it at expanding intervals. Every rehearsal, every other rehearsal, every 4, etc. Keep a log. Okay, it's been a while since our last G minor 7 test. And you know why, right? Because I'm showing you how to use spaced repetition with expanding intervals. So you gradually add more time between your tests. Okay, how many notes of G minor 7 are flat notes? How many are natural notes? And how many notes have sharps? The notes of G minor 7 are G, B flat, D, F. So there are 3 natural notes, 1 note is flat, and there are no sharp notes. Let's wrap everything up. We discussed the 2 most powerful learning strategies that most students don't know about or use. What were the 2 learning strategies? I'll give you a second to think of it. Right, active recall and spaced repetition. Now, answer this question. What is active recall? Active recall is also known as the testing effect. The learning strategy of testing yourself, actively pulling the answers out of your mind, helps you develop stronger memories. What is the opposite of active recall? Restudying, staring at the answer, not retrieving it from your mind. What is spaced repetition? Spaced repetition is the learning strategy of spreading out tests of your knowledge over time. So you can space your self-tests across any time frame. It can be several times inside of an hour, a day, a week, or more. What is the expanding time interval strategy? Expanding time intervals is the strategy of spacing out self-tests at ever-increasing time intervals. So you might test daily, then every other day, then weekly, monthly, etc. In this video, you've been learning about active recall and spaced repetition. And I've been interrupting you with these little tests on spelling the G minor 7 chord. So I've been giving you a template that you can apply to anything that you're learning. If you want to continue with your G minor 7 chord spelling training, do this. Think of something that you'll be doing in an hour or 2. When that event comes, remind yourself to test on the G minor 7 chord. And then later tonight, before you go to bed, quiz yourself again. Tomorrow, when you think of this video, test yourself. And then on the next coming Sunday, test yourself. Set a reminder in your calendar. On the next major holiday, test yourself. So you get the idea. We keep spreading out the time intervals where you test yourself. If you're watching this on YouTube, I hope you realize that there's a whole step-by-step learning system on StudyBass.com that you don't get on YouTube. And I deliberately use these learning and teaching strategies and many others throughout the lessons. It's not an accident. And best of all of the lessons are free because I think everyone deserves to learn. So, you know what to do. Start using active recall and spaced repetition. You'll learn much better.